I'm going to cover the single column tie. Yes, I know, we all think we know it, but what I'm going to talk about today is the things that you don't know that you don't know. There are a lot of tiny details in everything shibari, and these are the things that make the difference. So I'm going to cover 10 things that Nina and I have picked up on over the years, and we hope that it'll give you a deeper understanding and you'll get an idea of where we're coming from in all our tutorials. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the direction that things take once you've made the tie. As we've always said, you need to respect the rule of where the rope wants to go if you want to make things work nicely and be aesthetically pleasing. So in this first instance, I'm just going to make a couple of wraps and we'll see how the direction of a wrap, in other words, whether the bite's on the top or the bottom, what difference that makes. Gripping it like this to keep everything flat, pushing it around, changing hands, sliding my fingers around, keeping the wraps nice and flat still, working it round until I get to the position that I want to tie off on. So, firstly, I'm going to make my loop on this side, and that'll bring me on to the second point to perform the correct knot. Keeping the rope in the same hand, I make my loop there, take my rope through, and tighten. As you can see, if I flatten this all out, the rope wants to exit on the top here. Thus, if I was to work downwards, you can see all the bindings start to twist. So your rope will exit on the side on which your bite is. So in other words, I started at the top here and I worked downwards. My bite stayed on the top, therefore my rope exits from the top. So this would work nicely if I was going to work upwards from here and create something else, etc. Maybe bring that together. So you can see it wants to go in this direction. If on the other hand I put my bite on the bottom, you'll see that the rope will then want to go downwards. So now the bite's on the bottom here, cross them, again using the same hand, come through, and now my rope is wanting to exit on the bottom without rolling the wraps over and making things look ugly. Okay, this is an important one. Everybody always gets confused about how to form the most effective knot, the onmusubi, or I think it actually is a granny knot in English, but the one that doesn't collapse so easily, that isn't a reef knot. The reef knot's the one that's two interlocking sort of U-shapes like that. So let's show you a nice simple rule for it. Okay, so our bite is on this side. In order to form the most effective one, we need to create the loop on the same side. And that's just a nice fluid hand movement. Take the end, close. Because the loop was on the right side here, the same side as the bite, we got the correct version. So that's the correct one, with the loop both on this side. And if I make it this way, and pull through here, just settle that down, you can see the typical U shape of the reef knot, which, as I said, if I pull out that way, you can see it collapses. So, nice simple rule, as long as your loops are on the same side, you'll have the right knot. Hope that helps. The third rule, which is common to pretty much all tying, is not changing hands any more than you need to. The more you change hands, the less efficient you become. So try to develop a method that means you don't have to swap hands, you've always got the rope in the right hand. So for example, we're passing the rope around, change hands, slide back, maintain the tension, cross, same hand here, form my loop, and close. I didn't change hands once during that operation, so that's the most efficient way for me to do that tie. And we'll move on to the fourth point from here. That is the direction in which you tighten. Tighten parallel to the wraps. Remember, keeping the bite stationary and putting your tension on here. You can tighten this a little bit further if you really need to get a tight one. For example, when you're tying the wrist tie legote, a little trick that Kineko does, you'll pull one, then the other. And as you can see, those moved slightly even after they've been tightened. So along the wraps. One mistake I often see people do is they'll reverse the direction. And as you can see, that's not a very secure knot when it's been pulled the wrong way, and it can even collapse completely over and make all sorts of horrible messes if you don't respect the direction. You can see the direction the rope wants to go. Always remember, follow the way the rope wants to go, its natural way, and you'll pretty much always be right. Well, in fact, I think you will always be right. So remember that. From here, I'll come to my fifth point, Be careful here to try and keep equal tension on the bite and the working end. There is a tendency, if you pull too much on one, you roll everything over. So be aware of keeping your tension right there. Another point when you're tying, again, efficiency, minimise the number of fingers you're using. You'll see most of the tying I do is with these two fingers or just this finger. So when you come to here, finger under, bring the rope to your finger, flip it through. Again, when you're untying, one or two fingers, all it takes. When you're making your tie, pull the rope. It's much more elegant than trying to push it up. It's much easier to pull rope than it is to push it as well. We talked earlier about direction of the rope. So here's another example. The rope naturally wants to go in this way because this is the way that it's exiting from the knot. If we want to go this way, you can see it pulls the rope away in an ugly manner. So how do we change direction? The answer to that one is to form an extra loop. And the way to know which way to do it is to put the rope in the direction you want it to go and then take the bite through. And there you've got the rope going off in the opposite direction as you wanted. The correct way of going down, as we mentioned in the other tip, is where you start. In other words, where the bite is in relation to the wraps will determine which way your rope exits. You can do a little bit of an ugly bodge, bring the rope down like this and then just close like that. The problem is that that will roll the wraps over. It's kind of better than not doing it at all, I guess. You know, if you pull it from there, it really does roll it over. You're far better off starting in the correct direction. So, just another little point. Try and pay attention to these small details. They'll make a big difference to how your rope looks at the end of the day. So far we've just demonstrated one method of wrapping, namely this one. Take it between thumb and forefinger, slide it round so you can take it with the other thumb and forefinger, slide your fingers back to flatten the wraps and take any twists out. Make your adjustment. Right under, form your loop, and close. And as we discussed before, if you start at the top, with the bite at the top and work down, your knot will appear on the top like this. If you start with your bite on the bottom and work up, the rope will come out at the bottom. So you choose your direction according to the way that you're working. The second method which is probably better for tying on areas where you can tie with a little bit of tension, because you'll see that I need to trap the bite. I'm going to use this section here because when I'm tying across here, there's a gap. Unlike a human body, it's concave here, so I can't trap the bite there, so that's the reason I do it over here. Reach round. When you get to this point, you decide which direction you want to wrap in, and that will be determined by which side here you go. So if I want to go down, I'll need to make sure that I trap the bite. So let's get the bite underneath. Come round. When I get to here, I can pull my bite out again. Slide it to where I want to go. There. Make my loop again. Close off. So that's the same as before. If I start with the bite underneath, so in other words down here, not up here, I get the opposite result. The rope will go in the opposite direction. So this time I want to work up. So I'll come and trap the bite this way and then work upwards. Pull my bite out again, trap everything, and move it across. Cross, and tie off as I did previously. This time you'll see my ropes coming down. So that's all there is to it. Two ways, play around with them, see what you like best. Neither is right, neither is wrong. As I say, you won't be able to trap the bite though if you're tying around wrists and things, because there's a bit too much room. Therefore the slide round method is better for that, I think. Anyway, a few ideas for you. And I'll come now on to one final point, which is a quick method that I use for tying this tie. It is dependent on the direction that you're working, so try it out and see how it works for you. I tend to use it for tying hands behind the back for a box tie, gote, takata gote, whatever. And in this example, I tend to pass the rope up from underneath at the back of their arms and work from right to left. This is a fast method I call Kitty's gun because I use my fingers like this to actually form the knot. You'll see what I mean. I use this when I'm tying a box tie, takata gote, whatever you like to call it, where arms are like this, parallel behind, and you're tying a binding around the wrists. So I'll come in, underneath, catch my rope, catch it again, allowing some safety space, pass the rope up to my fingers, make my adjustment, the rope using again one finger, I'll catch it and take it underneath. So here I now make my Kitty's gun. Careful not to roll this knot over my thumb, make the gap a little bit bigger to make life easier, and then just flick this through. Holding the bite in position, I just tension this knot here, and there we have it. So that's it for our quick pro tips. I'm sure we'll be back with some more stuff soon. Come and have a look at the other tutorials on shibari classes. I'll make sure that this is added to our single column tie tutorials, just as a reminder as well. But we've got lots more there, and as I say, the devil's in the detail. It's not just about making pretty patterns, it's about how you do it, it's about the finesse, it's about the dominance you exert.